Hello everyone, my name is Roya, and this is the Books and Places tag. Is that what it's called? Yes, it is. So I was tagged by the creator of this tag, Sarah from Voyage Through Worlds, and this tag, the whole idea behind it is to share some books that you associate with the places that you read them. So basically the whole idea is to pick books that you read some time ago so that you know that you associate those books with those places. So I seem to associate books with exactly mostly the same two places, and those are both places that I spent a year in, and that is Germany and Ashland, Oregon. But I tried not to stick to just those two places, so without further ado, here we go. The first and possibly most important book on this list is Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood. So I read this in Germany. The first two times I read this were in Germany within a month of each other, because that's how good this book is. So basically I read this for a class in Germany, which is kind of, it's kind of weird that I would go to Germany and decide to take an English class, but basically, in order to get enough credits and everything, we had to fill up our schedule with something. The class that I read this for was post-apocalyptic fiction, and I had read a buttload of other Margaret Atwood books, and I knew that I loved her books for the most part. Some of them not so much, but mostly. So I was dying to read this. I was going to read it anyway, so I was like, hey, maybe I should do post-apocalyptic fiction so I can read Oryx and Crake. And this book is just so good, and I read it twice while I was there, and that's when it became my favorite book of all time. Another book that I kind of associate with Germany is one that I don't have with me, and that is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. Basically, that book is one that I read while I was traveling throughout Europe while I was in Germany, because our spring break was like a month long. So I basically went to France, and then went to Switzerland, and then went to France again, then went to Switzerland again, or whatever the heck happened. So I don't remember on which train rides I specifically read that book in, but I'm pretty sure I at least read it on the way to Basel, Switzerland from Paris, France. And so I always, whenever I think about that book, I think about being on the train in France and or Switzerland. It's just really weird. And another book that I associate with Germany as well is Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. I read this one in Germany, and then 2 years later, not quite, I read its sequel, World Without End, on a trip to Japan and Australia. And basically on that trip to Japan and Australia, which was only like a 2-week trip, I finished like 6 books. Even though they were all really long, they were all over 600 pages, but I can't sleep on planes, and that was like 4 flights that were at least 10 hours. So a very long time ago, almost 10 years ago now, I was going to college in Ashland, Oregon, and I was only there for like a year before I transferred to a different school. And so basically during that time, I read Green Rider, and I remember picking this book up on a recommendation from one of my best friends the summer before I went to college. And so when I got to college, I started reading it, and it was really good. And then funny thing is, I read the next 2 books while I was in Germany, like 3 years later. So I just find that kind of funny too. It all comes back to Germany. It's like, I spent only a year in Germany, but during that year, I took a whole suitcase full of books and a whole Kindle full of books with me to Germany, and I read all of them almost, because German universities don't give you stupid, pointless homework. Last but not least, I have a book here that I only read last year, but I definitely, even though it's only been a year, I do know that I associate this book with that place, and that is Hyperion by Dan Simmons, because I read this on my band's tour that we went on last October, and we're going on a tour again this October, but basically, this book is the one that my band gets its name from and everything, and and because I had just, not yet officially joined that band, but I was going on that tour with them, I decided to get this book at the first, bookstore we saw while I was there, and that was in LA, And so I started reading it at the one hotel we actually stayed at that was, it was just outside of LA. And I started reading it, and then I got up the next morning and everyone else was still asleep, so I went into the hallway and read it some more because I didn't want to like bother everybody. So I just think it's funny, like when I think about this book, I think about like what part I was reading while I was like sitting in the hallway, and it was just really random. Those are some books that I associate with certain places that I've been to. Let me know what a book is that you associate with a certain place you've traveled, and I will see you soon with a new video. Bye!